Hey guys, welcome back. So for this one, we're getting back into the Venom series for a moment that is called See Latveria and Die, which almost sounds like it should be its own event. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so going into this, we're now picking up from the events of Venom issue 21, back when Eddie went head to head with Bedlam, and the two of them more or less joined forces. And I got a link to our talks on that down in the description, since that was 3 issues ago. But at the end of that fight, Eddie said that they need to go and get a time machine, because although Eddie can travel through time, as it stands he can only do that with his consciousness, and for him to physically travel through time and take his human symbiote body along with Bedlam for the ride, Eddie needs an actual time machine to get this done. So as a result, when we jump in, this now takes us to Latveria, where we find Eddie at Wernerstad International Airport, which is completely ran by Doombots, by the way. And with Eddie getting here, he's traveling under the name Charles Allen, which is a bit of a giveaway for a made-up name, but that's not the issue he runs into here, because instead he's harassed by one of these TSA Doombots, who asks him if he has anything to declare. So of course Eddie's like no, but then the Doombot asks Eddie to set his carry-on bag on the counter for inspection, and it's here where things get a bit hostile, with the Doombot telling Eddie that he lied about having nothing to declare, and that it's not a human being that it should be fooled. So it demands that Eddie shows it what he's brought to their country, and as it turns out, this red carry-on bag happens to be Bedlam, who just chomps down on this Doombot. And when Eddie turns around, he looks at the other Doombots and he's like, look, you can't say I didn't warn him. Only for the other Doombots to be like, yeah we can, because you didn't. And I mean, to keep it a buck, Eddie didn't actually give that Doombot a warning. So these other ones are right, because their audio sensors were listening the whole time, and Eddie didn't say that. So they continue to address him as Mr. Allen, and they tell him, damaging a Doombot is defacing the likeness of Doom, and that's a capital offense in Latveria. And to turn up the heat another notch, Eddie comes clean, telling them that he's actually Eddie Brock, and how him and Doom have a bit of history, which is a reference to the events that had taken place in Venom Lethal Protector 2, which is a recent story that takes place in the past, with it giving us another take on the time back when Eddie and the symbiote just started to do the hero/anti-hero thing, which eventually led to a team up with Silver Sable, as well as Eddie at the time briefly working with Doom. But with Eddie making it clear who he is, the Doombots immediately confirm him as an enemy, and the first law of Doombotics is to suffer no enemy of Doom to live, which is one of those things where it's like, of course, the Doombots are gonna take it to the extreme, because in the past, Eddie's been both a friendly and a foe, so to them, they're just focusing on the foe part, because once a foe, always a foe, or however that saying goes. But with them hitting Eddie with maximum voltage, even with him being the human symbiote, this stops his heart. But one of the perks of his abilities at this stage is that he's able to start his heart right back up again. And fortunately for Eddie, he's brought along with him the Bedlam symbiote, which allows him to quickly crank things up another notch, so they can muscle their way through and make their way to Doom. But after this, some hours later, we make our way over to Doomstad, where one of the Doombots is filling in the actual Dr. Doom about Eddie Brock arriving in Latveria and how he made it past their defenses, and Doom is like, so essentially y'all telling me y'all failed. And this Doombot's like, nah, I am a Doombot. I wear the face of Doom. I speak the voice of Doom. I'm the hand of Doom to do Doom's work in the world, and Doom cannot fail. Doom can only be failed. So it tells Doom how this had to be an error on the part of one of the Doombots working under it, some kind of electrical fault or something. So for this reason, the surviving Doombots were scrapped. And so Dr. Doom is like, yeah, okay, so tell me this, if you say Doom cannot fail, I got one more question. Where's Eddie Brock now? Because if you can't capture or kill a potential enemy of the state, keeping them under strict surveillance is the highest priority. Because there should be an extra Doombot on standby just observing, because that's something that Doom would do. And right there, this Doombot just acts like he was hit with the pick a fire hydrant test, as he goes back and forth with, I made a mistake, I failed, Doom cannot fail, until his head just explodes, because he failed. And I like how Ewing threw this in here, because Doom is truly the center of his own universe. He's always speaking in third person, but when it comes to accountability, being wrong or falling short, Doom often slides that off to somebody else. And apparently his Doombots have inherited that flaw. But then suddenly, when he hears knocking at the door, he tells this person to enter, only to find that it's Eddie Brock. And you would think from here that the fight would just jump off immediately. But instead, Doom just offers Eddie a seat at the table. He offers him dinner. And Eddie accepts. He's just like, well, yeah, I could eat. And though this surprises Eddie initially, Doom lets him know. Despite their previous altercations, he prefers Eddie as a guest rather than an intruder, because things like Doom bots and doors, they can be replaced. And going into their conversation, Doom lets Eddie know that he sees him differently now, since Eddie's become a king since they last met, and it was something that Eddie earned, as opposed to some petty accident of birth as random as the path of a cosmic storm, which kind of feels like a slight to somebody else, but I'm not gonna dwell on it. But eventually in their conversation, Eddie gets around to why he's here, with him letting Doom know that he's able to time travel. And at first, Doom's kind of like, okay, are we talking real time travel, or are we talking about people who step into an alternate reality but in the past? Because there's levels to this, and to Doom, that's not quite time travel. And I totally agree, because it's absolutely not the same. But Eddie goes on to let Doom know that he can move up and down this timeline, though only with his mind. But right now, he needs to do that and bring his body along with him as well. And to get it done, he needs a time machine. He needs Doom's time machine, which right there for Doom, it's a quick no. And he's more or less like, you think I'm out here just lending time machines to people? Just tossing out potentially universal destroying technologies to each and every maniac that just comes beating down my door? So Doom extends to Eddie the offer to turn away from the path that he's on, go home, and go back to his son. But for Eddie, that's the thing. His son is the mission. His son is the quest, because there's a version of Eddie that is a ticking time bomb, and he needs to defuse it, and he can't go home until that's done. So for Doom, with him hearing this, he's pretty much like, okay, I see what it is, so are we gonna finish eating our food, or are we gonna scrap now? And Eddie's pretty much like, now's good, as Eddie flips the table, only for Doom to then summon a hellish hand, the awful arm of Azathoth, to snatch Eddie into the ground, which then takes the two of them down into one of Doom's libraries, where this one is devoted to certain esoteric texts, maps of the various hells, and rituals of summoning, which are things that Doom sees as childish, though he still entertains them for the occasional amusement. So for Eddie, with him not being a magic guy, he's more of a brawler, so he starts breaking the fingers of Azathoth one by one till he lets him go. And after cracking that thumb and that pinky, the hand opens up and Eddie's just like, good boy. And for Doom, when he sees this, he admits that he's impressed, though mainly because Eddie made his way out of this by using such a simple tactic, which apparently proved to be effective. But from here, as it turns out, Eddie doesn't mind being a bit destructive, because with their fight making its way to Doom's library, Eddie's ready to tear down some walls and see what else he can find. So when Doom lets Eddie know that he's pretty much outstayed his welcome, Eddie's then like, okay, cool, I'll make my own exit, as he just runs through the next wall, making his way into one of Doom's laboratories, where he finally finds Doom's time platform, which is one of those things that most people might remember from Future Imperfect, but this platform goes all the way back to the early 60s, with it first appearing in Fantastic Four issue 5. And over the years, it's had slightly different names, where in some cases it's just called a time travel device, or others just referring to it as Doom's time travel platform. But this was one of those things that showed up early on as more of a plot device, with Doom kidnapping Sue Richards and sending the other members of the Fantastic Four back in time so that they could retrieve Blackbeard's treasure for him. And through the years, it would be used time and time again. But at this point, with Doom seeing that Eddie has found it, Doom's pretty much like, okay Eddie, tread carefully, like this whole thing ain't funny no more. The joke's over, cause now the threat of Eddie snooping around Doomstat, it's a lot higher than it was initially. So Doom turns it up a few notches on Eddie, and he lets him know that his disintegration will be quick and mostly painless, because now that's all that's left of his hospitality, cause Eddie should have just finished his dinner. So Eddie pulls a pretty smart move on Doom, with him sending Bedlam to attack and distract Doom while he figures out how to get the time platform working. But it isn't long before Doom is able to get Bedlam off of him, as he goes on to tell Eddie, more or less, that there's no way that someone with his level of intelligence can just, air quotes, figure out how to activate and fly the time platform. And Eddie doesn't disagree, so he lets Doom know that he may not be able to figure out how to fly it, but one thing he can do is crash it. As Eddie then just starts throwing hands at the console to where it then activates, sending Doom, Eddie, and Bedlam blindly to another time. Which now not only has me excited to see this fight continue, but also see what this takes us in connection to Flexo, as well as somewhere along the line, us finding that Doom has a contingency for such an event, if for no other reason than because he's Doom. And Doom doesn't fail, as he would say. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.